Hey, I'm Bethany, I'm 28, I'm an online vintage clothing seller, I'm a painter, singer-songwriter, sometimes a music video extra. I'm also a very proud owner to a house bunny called Romeo. But I'm also something else. I'm very proud to say that I'm bipolar type 1. Today I'm going to share my mental health journey with you guys, about how I was diagnosed, my first manic episode, and how I keep myself safe and stable. I wasn't diagnosed until 2016 when I was 26, but I'm going to take you guys back to 2010 where it all kicked off in the first place. So I was 20, I was super in love with a guy and I'd moved to Brighton to be with him. He broke up with me after 4 months. So it's a pretty normal thing to happen to someone, I guess. You cry so much, you don't really eat anyway, and you send a bunch of texts, midnight texts that you deeply regret the next day. But alongside all of that, I started having very, very negative thoughts. It was the first time I had experienced depression. So I'd been living that way for around 3 months before I went to the doctors. I told her that I feel like I have nothing to live for and how long it had been going on for, and she immediately tried to prescribe me antidepressants. I said no straight away. I didn't want to be associated with any sort of mental health problem. Instead, I begged for time off of work. For me, I never had a gradual feeling of getting better, so I'd be depressed for around, I don't know, maybe 2 months. And suddenly I'd wake up, I would feel amazing for, I don't know, another 2 months, 2 or 3 months, and then suddenly I'd just be crazy depressed again. So this cycle of feeling really good and then feeling really depressed kept getting more and more severe every time. It was like that for years. I would always go back to the doctors. The doctor kept trying to give me antidepressants, but I declined each time. I'll just beg for time off of work. I just didn't want to be associated with depression whatsoever. Basically, I knew my depression would disappear suddenly one day, like it always did. In 2015, I had a really yin-yang year, so I actually felt really elated and really happy and positive for well over half the year. Towards the end of those months though, feeling really good, I was definitely acting slightly different. I was constantly full of energy, constantly running around. I wanted to socialise all the time. I started drinking quite a lot. It was a different type of positive that I'd been for the past couple of years. Around September, October time, I suddenly got very, very, very depressed again, and this time it was dreadful. It really severely affected my life and my social life and my friendships. I didn't want to go out at all, I just wanted to stay in. I got very addicted to conspiracy videos, which is one of the worst things to watch when you're feeling really depressed. So I was already feeling incredibly negative about myself, and then all of a sudden the entire world was negative and I didn't want to be alive anymore. Very worryingly, I started researching different ways to kill myself. I think it was that moment that I knew that I needed to go back to the doctors and start antidepressants, because I was really, really worried that I wasn't going to make it out the other side alive. I went back to the doctors and I got given a very, very high dose of antidepressants. Little did either of us know that this was going to be the catalyst of my first manic episode. You're really not meant to give someone with bipolar straight up antidepressants. So things got really weird pretty fast. You're gonna have to use your imagination at this bit, because things... this is quite difficult for me to explain, and there's going to be bits in it where you're going to be like, what? The first 2 weeks of being on antidepressants were pure hell. You get the worst anxiety you would ever feel in your life. I was literally hugging walls whenever I left the house. Suddenly one day I woke up and I felt incredible. I was instantaneously in a brand new reality. My vision was HD. I felt elated. I was seeing sparkles everywhere. The closest thing I can compare it to is the white dots you see dancing around the sky when you stare straight at a blue sky. Everything was sparkly. I was even seeing it in the dark, like my world became pure magic, and it was the first time in my adult life that I was so excited to be alive and experience life. So things escalated quite quickly. Got pretty weird when I started to think that my phone was communicating with me. I'm cringing already. So I thought my phone was communicating with me. All of a sudden I saw a connection in everything. Every single thing that I saw, felt, touched meant something. Everything was happening for a reason. These connections I was making started to guide my every single move. I started to have revelations about life and why we exist. It was incredibly overwhelming and powerful all at the same time. It blew my mind every single time I realised something new. As soon as I entered Mania, I was incredibly secretive about my brand new magical world. I didn't want anyone to know about it because at that moment in time I knew it wasn't okay. I knew that people would think I was insane, but I was loving life and having this incredible new experience, and I didn't want anyone to take that away from me. From the outside, to begin with, it did look like I was getting better. I was very, very positive, and I was reassuring my friends and family that I was feeling really, really good. But that only lasted for around 2 months. By this point, I was hearing, seeing and feeling absolutely everything in existence. My mind was working at 1,000%. The closest thing that I could compare this to is the film Lucy, where her brain works at 100% by the end of the film. It was the most overwhelming experience, but incredible at the same time. The amount of information I was taking in one split second was insane. There are so many things that happened to me during the peak of my mania. I wish I could tell you all of it. I need to write a book or something because some of it's just absolutely insane. But I'm just going to point out a really poignant moment where now this is going to sound absolutely crazy, but I met God, creation, life itself, whatever you want to call it, whatever it was, it essentially saved my life for the 2 weeks following. In that moment I was chilling in my front living room. I was really, really pumped up because I was about to go on tour with a band in Europe doing filming work for them. So I was bumbling around my front living room trying to get ready, and I was looking out of the window, and then suddenly everything turned into pure white ultraviolet light, and it was like I knew instantaneously I was with something bigger than me. The feelings that I felt in that moment in time are completely indescribable. I wasn't expecting it, and I hadn't even asked for it. I wasn't brought up religious or spiritual or anything like that, but I do believe that that particular moment happened for a reason. Obviously I was very, very poorly at this point, so I like to think that this was like my subconscious knowing that things were going to get really, really bad really quickly, and I needed something to keep me grounded to reality. I had no like audible conversation with it, but basically in that moment it was the realisation that I was loved and I was needed and I needed to stay alive. It truly helped me stay alive because things turned really dark really quickly. I'm finally on tour with this band in Europe and it's incredible. Tour's a very surreal experience as it is, but I was manic at the same time, so it was like absolutely insane. All of the connections that I started to make were telling me to drown myself. It was petrifying, and our first city stop was Amsterdam, and there's water everywhere. I was scared the whole time that I was going to do something stupid and drown myself. My emotions were so heightened that when something spooked me, I felt fear. Like, I really felt fear. I was having panic attacks left, right and centre, and my friends on the tour didn't know how to deal with me. I was so convinced that I was going to die every single day that I was calling my best friend and calling my mum to tell them how much I loved them. So remember I told you about that weird meeting thing with whatever you want to call it? Every single night when I was falling asleep, I was flooded with love and reassurance. This is what I mean when I say that happened for a reason. Had that not had happened, I would have drowned myself somewhere in Europe on tour. So at this moment, I was barely eating anything at all. I must have weighed about, I don't know, 7 stone. I was running on empty, but I was still running at 1,000 miles per hour. I was I'm cringing. I was convinced that I had superpowers. I was convinced that I could control electricity. I could hear electricity. I was very convinced that I could control music and make it sound exactly how I wanted it to sound. Oh my god. You can imagine how mental I must have looked when I was on tour and when the gigs were on. Oh man. Like I said before, I wish I could tell you everything that happened when I was at the peak of my mania because it was absolutely insane. But I'm gonna have to take it quickly to when I came back from tour. I had finally plucked up the courage and thought, I've gained so much new information about life and existence. I'm going to have to tell my best friends absolutely everything. And I wanted to let loose on all the information that I had covered, and I really truly thought that I was going to blow their minds and open their eyes and change their lives. Oh man. So as you can guess, that didn't really end well. Everyone was telling me I needed to get help. I didn't believe them at all. I would get furious with them, and I said a lot of really hurtful things to the people that I love because I was trying to protect my magical world so fiercely. In the end, my poor best friend that I lived with at the time literally had no idea what to do by this point, and she called up my parents and told them that they immediately had to take me to the doctors, and so they did. And I'd never felt so angry, humiliated and ashamed in my life. I was immediately referred to an early intervention team in Brighton. At this point I was still manic, but it was really obvious that I was starting to crash because I started understanding that things that I believed weren't necessarily real. My best friend took me to my assessment. I was immediately given a very high dose of sedatives that I had to start taking. I remember that day really, really vividly. My magical world was crumbling really, really fast. I really can't express the shame and embarrassment that I felt. I was devastated. I remember calling up my friend later that night and sobbing. I had been so traumatised, I was so confused, I was so sad, I had no idea what was going on, and I remember telling her that I didn't feel God anymore, whatever you want to call it. I didn't have that connection with this incredible thing, I just felt really alone. It was one of the worst moments of my life. I can't remember much from when I was sedated. I know that I slept a lot. I know that I cried a lot. I know that I couldn't really do that much, and I also know I managed to buy my house bunny Romeo to keep me company. I had a nurse that came to visit me pretty much once every day, bar from weekends, just to check in on me and make sure that I was taking my medication properly. I became severely depressed very, very quickly. Around 3 months in of taking sedatives, I started to get tapered onto a thing called mood stabilizers. So that's a medication that you take that technically is meant to level out your mood so you don't feel depressed and you don't feel manic. I think I tried 2 or 3 different types, but towards the end I was like, you know what? I'm not bipolar. There's nothing wrong with me. I don't have any mental health condition. I don't want to take these pills anymore. I felt like they were holding me back from being me, so I stopped taking them, like an idiot. It really wasn't that long after that moment where I was laying on my bed one night and I had a fleeting thought. Either I kill myself tonight. It's very dark, I know, but I'm being very real right now. Or I call my mum and ask if I can come back home. Of course, I got to move home straight away, and I was immediately referred to a brand new mental health team where I was finally diagnosed bipolar type 1. I was given the correct type of mood stabilizer for my type by New Year's Eve, so this would be the end of 2016. I started to feel better, and I had never known what it was like to actually feel well. It was amazing, and it was like from the beginning of 2017, each day I was just feeling better and better and better, and it was incredible. So at the beginning of the year I got given intensive therapy. That helped me process exactly what had happened to me the year before. I also did CBT therapy, which helped me come up with plans so I would know what to do to make sure it didn't get as bad as it did again. All of my friends and family now know the signs to look out for. This is why I have to be so open about the fact that I'm bipolar. So for depression, it's very easy for me to pick up on the signs that I'm going on a slippery slope. But the one that I need help with is mania, because you're like instantly in a brand new reality, so I won't be able to tell the difference. So now I need to make sure that I really look after myself. I need to make sure that I'm eating, I'm sleeping the correct amount of hours a night. I need to keep on top of my mood. I think the most important thing for me though is making sure that I seek help as soon as I feel that I have no control. This means making sure that I see my doctor immediately, whether or not it's depression or mania. This also means that I need to let my friends and family know what's going on, just to make sure that they can keep an eye on me. I've had to learn that recovery is a lifelong process. Even to this day, I'm still processing exactly what's happened to me. I've learned to take positives from my experience. These positives have enabled me to be able to be proud of being bipolar and be able to openly speak about my experience with people. I think we're quite lucky because we're in a time where people are starting to realise that it's a problem. There's too many people getting really, really poorly, and that wouldn't be the case if everyone was fully educated in mental health, knowing and understanding the importance of making sure that you're mentally well. Although I'd never change what's happened to me because it's made me who I am today, I would never want anyone to go through the same thing as me. Take a little moment right now just to check in with yourself. Are you feeling good? Amazing. You do you, boo. But if you're not, make sure that you talk to an adult that you trust. I promise they'll be able to help. I guess that's it from me. If you want to rewatch the video at all, find me on YouTube, just search for Bootak and I'll pop up. If you've got any questions, please comment on the video below. I hope you all have a great day. Bye.